next speaker is Dr. Kathleen Garland. Again, she is a big friend of Envirothon. She's done a lot for Envirothon over the years. So thank you very much, Kathy, and welcome back. And if you would like to introduce yourself, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. Hi, guys. Some of you I know, some of you I'll just be meeting now and hopefully in April at the event. But I try to help out in teacher workshop here every year if the topic relates to what I do. I'm a senior lecturer here at the University of Houston Clear Lake in environmental management. And my area is sustainability and coastal resilience and sort of all things of the future in terms of us, creating a sustainable society. And so Wendy and Rowena asked me what I would like to present on, and I gave them the topic of food and renewable energy, along with some other things. And they came back and said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Let's do that one." So hopefully you will enjoy my presentation. The first part of it is pretty interactive. So I'm going to be asking you guys to unmute and contribute. And as we go through, so we're going to talk about sustainable food systems. I'm going to talk about the different elements of those systems, and then we're going to talk about some practices at the end that are out there. And hopefully you'll be able to use this to work with your teams to, enable conversation around this, because it's a huge, huge topic. Food systems are pretty complex, as all of you, I'm sure, are aware. I put the UN definition here of what a sustainable food system is. And I really love this definition because it talks about the fact that a food system is a process. And their definition of food systems, sustainable food systems, is that if we can achieve food and nutrition security today with a system of food, again, a food system, we should contribute to food and nutrition security for future generations. And there is a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there specifically around energy. There's a lot to unpack there really around what we mean by food and nutrition security. I'm going to talk, we can give us an opportunity to talk about that a little bit toward the end of my presentation. But a food system includes, we all tend to think about food and we start to immediately think about agriculture. But of course, agriculture is just the beginning of a food system. We have production and food processing. We have the distribution and marketing of food. And then we have the preparation and consumption of food. And all of those feed into the food system itself. And thus, those are all places where we can make the system more sustainable and hopefully introduce renewable energy sources into it to help us do that. A food system that is sustainable addresses environmental issues, but it also addresses the social issues, again, of food security, of food equity, of zero hunger. And then, of course, food is a huge business, right? It's a huge business. And so it also needs to address the economics of the food system and ways of making that more equitable and more sustainable for those people who are involved in the business of food. And so, we really can't separate the idea that if we have a sustainable food system, we're going to have sustainable energy sources associated with it. So I'm going to start by brainstorming with you guys about some ideas where energy fits into food systems. And I'm actually going to take myself out of present here because I'm going to edit this slide as we go. And I'm going to take your ideas and I want you to tell me some of the areas where you think energy fits into the agricultural element of a food system. So you talk and I'll type.
Tractor fuels.
There you go.
Fertilizers.
Irrigation energy.
Transportation.
Could get into packaging at the back end.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about production and processing. So I'm going to stick packaging in that section, but yeah, hold on to that one. But I mean, these are four great big ones here too. But just the energy that is needed to run the farm. I mean, just to run the lights and the heat and the buildings and all of that, right? Just sort of the energy for the infrastructure on the farm. So these are some great ones. All of those areas on a farm you've got to have energy to make this happen. It doesn't happen. We no longer use oxen, and even they have to be fed, right? So, and I suppose that's another place where we might think of energy is into producing feed, right? which is sort of cyclical because we produce feed on the farm, which we then use on the farm to produce products. But it takes energy throughout that cycle. So those are some great ones. Thank you. So let me go on to my next one. In production and processing. So great, packaging, that's a big one. So let's put packaging here. Where else?
Transportation.
Mm-hmm. Seems like there's always transportation, right? We've always got to move stuff around.
Warehouse and storage.
Uh-huh.
Water resources.
I'm going to not call that one energy.
Okay.
But of course it's needed. Refrigeration, right? Big one.
What about waste management? All the back end waste.
Yep. So tons of things going on in production and processing. And again, warehousing and storage, if you're going to move stuff around, you actually have a lot of mobile equipment that has to do that, right? You got things like forklifts and small vehicles that are used to just move things around inside your warehouse and inside your storage. So there's lots of things going on in production and processing too.
There's also the food processing. I mean, just sorting it, and sometimes they get chopped up and made into different products.
Yeah, sorting.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking about the water, like the cleaning of the food and the cleaning. It's kind of what the processing and go in with.
Yeah, I mean, there's just sorting, chopping. I mean, think how they make baby carrots, right? They go from a carrot, you got to make it into all those little carrots. There's a lot of energy that's involved in the actual processing. And of course, if you think about meat processing, right? There's the grinding, conveyor belts, and shaping, and all sorts of things that are going on in food processing. All of which are using equipment, all of which are using energy.
Cooking.
And in the packaging, there's a ton in the packaging as well, because when you think about what type of packaging, when you go to the grocery store, it's amazing how many things are in a form of plastic, or they're on styrofoam. And that styrofoam is even a petrochemical plastic. So there's, and then you put it all in a plastic bag to get it out of the store. Or even the bags now, unless they are cotton cloth bags, a lot of the bags that we buy to haul our groceries out, they are a petrochemical product as well.
Exactly. So so we're using them here in the production and processing, where we're packaging to get it out to the market, and then we're going to use it again when we buy it. So we're going to have that packaging show up twice, right? Packaging is and the energy associated with packaging is going to show up in different parts of the system because we do use a ton of it. So absolutely, yeah, packaging is huge. And then just doing the packaging, right? You have wrapping and labeling. Wrapping, labeling, boxing, bagging, whatever we do with it, all of that has to happen in the processing. You can buy a loose grapefruit in the grocery store, but you can buy a whole bag of them too. And who bagged them? Was it farmers in the field? Might have been people, pickers, who actually bagged in the field. Sometimes it just goes into a big bin and it goes into a facility and they throw them into bags. A machine puts them into bags. So we don't really know, but energy goes into it all the way along the line. So those are great ones. And again, we're going to have more. So distribution and marketing. Where does energy come into use in distribution and marketing?
Advertising.
And how does that use energy?
If it's a newspaper, if it's a grocery store that is advertising in a newspaper article, you have paper involved, ink involved. Ink contains petrochemicals.
Digital marketing.
Paint on the side of a truck going down the highway.
Right. Yeah. And so we have transportation like trucks and advertising on the transportation.
Yeah. How about securing it so that it doesn't get tampered with and putting expiration dates on it and all that? That's part of the process.
It is. I think I'm going to put that back here into, yeah, I'm not sure where that's probably in processing. So I'm going to stick it back here in processing. But again, tamper proofing.
Yes. And then also, isn't it, don't they also have to have numbers that tie it back to who grew it? I mean, there has to be a chain of.
Right. Mm-hmm. Custody. Yep. That's especially true for vegetables. Yep. And then again, in distribution and marketing. So yeah, we have advertising, we have digital marketing, we have transportation. So if we're using trucks, we're going to put advertising on the transportation.
Do you do waste disposal? Like once it's no longer marketable, or if it's stayed on the shelf too much, you have to have energy to move it out of the store?
I'm going to put that on the back end along with, kind of consumption, because that's sort of what happens when we don't consume it. So I'm going to put that a little bit further into kind of the next stage. But yes, you're absolutely right.
Well, in the stores, there's refrigeration again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in distribution too, right? So we haven't even got it to the store yet.
Yes, all the forklifts you need at the other end to put them on the shelves and to bring them in from the trucks, and the infrastructure of the distribution centers.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of vehicles in this whole process, right? There can be trains, right? There can be long distance hauling trucks, right? Then there's delivery trucks, right? Which bring it locally to sometimes, to smaller markets or things like that, which are smaller vehicles. So there's just tons of vehicles in the process of distribution. We even fly it, right? There's some foods that are flown, right? So we use aircraft as well. All of these places are using this energy. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
You can even get into shipping too, long distance global travel shipping.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we ship grain, right?
Yeah. I had some lychees the other day all the way from South Africa. I'm pretty sure they were flown here.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So there's global shipping as well. So we have levels. Stuff goes all over. We're pretty spoiled when you think about it. And we're really spoiled in terms of not even thinking about the energy that is behind something we buy in the market. I've been looking at asparagus recently. And when I go to HEB, I look at the asparagus, and they have two kinds. They have organic asparagus from Mexico, and they have regular asparagus from Peru. So I buy if it's okay, I buy the organic asparagus from Mexico because it didn't have to go so far. Because I really don't understand why I should buy asparagus from Peru. That's too far away. But it's a really tiny, tiny little place on the label, right? Nothing saying out there Peruvian asparagus. It's like, because if you did, a lot of people would probably actually scratch their heads and think, that's a good idea.
Well, unless we think about global partners and we want to support their economy as well. I mean,
exactly. Good point.
There's all kinds of
complexities.
Hi, my question is, I'm trying to understand a little bit about the differences in terms of energy. I can see it in transportation and refrigeration and the others. There are vehicles and things that actually utilize energy. And I'm a bit confused with the digital media and the newspapers. And that's more in the matter component of it as opposed to the energy that is used. I'm trying to figure out how that fits into this.
Well, I certainly can speak to the terms of digital marketing. We tend to think that digital systems are cheap because they don't use physical resources that we can see. But they do use a tremendous amount of energy resources in the servers, in the back systems that make all of those forward-looking digital systems possible. So the digital marketplace is actually a big user of energy. We just don't see it. Right.
Okay, thank you. So it would be more on that end of it.
Yeah, and I think the same thing in terms of our paper advertising. We're really kind of talking about the footprint of those items themselves, and that there is energy in the footprint of those.
Perfect.
So if we think about their production, I think that we're looking at the energy footprint of those rather than the direct energy use. Obviously, a newspaper doesn't directly use energy. Getting it onto your doorstep might, and very few people do that now. But I get paper flyers from my grocery store in my mailbox every week. Every week I get them, and so somebody's printing them and sending them out and putting them in a truck and taking them around. somebody's doing that. So I get them.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Does labor have a place in this scheme? No.
It could. Everything kind of does, but if we put everything in here, we're going to be talking about this for 3 days. So I kind of left some stuff out in terms of it myself, but doesn't mean you can't talk about that with your students, right? Because yes, of course it does. Of course it does. And then this one's one of my favorites, is to think about where energy fits into preparation, into purchasing, preparing, and consuming food. And I think a couple of ideas that already came up, I'm going to put in here. So we have bagging from the grocery store. We have waste management of unsold food. Where are some other places that energy kind of plays into preparing and consuming food?
Cooking it.
The oven, the stove.
Yep.
Oh yeah, cooking.
Microwave.
Yep, stove, microwave, grill, etc. Right, food preparation devices, and we could make a huge list. Right, I'm just thinking about the blender, the food processor, large and small. Right,
Can opener.
there you go. Yeah, large. All these different things that allow you to get your food out of whatever they put it in and get it into some condition where it can go in your mouth. So there's all of that.
How about also like the industrial side of creating and preparing food, like restaurants or fast food chains? They use a lot of energy when preparing food.
Oh yeah, restaurants and big places that like Cisco, places that prepare food for institutional settings, right? Lots and lots of energy.
Or the takeout containers.
There you go. And of course, that goes along with food delivery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which didn't used to be so big, but is now massive.
Yes.
Food delivery, and that's both groceries and meals.
And then consumers that drive to the store to purchase products.
Mm-hmm. So, the point of my asking you these questions is, as we talk about this, it's obvious there's a ton of energy that goes into food systems, and it's in lots of places where we don't think about it, because we're not talking just about the farm. We talk about like that, digital marketing, refrigeration, takeout containers, your microwave, all of these things are using energy. What that tells us, though, is that there are loads of places where we can use renewable energy sources to reduce the energy footprint of a sustainable food system. There are tons of places within these categories that we can talk about how do we change that. And again, one of the reasons I wanted to create this list of all these different things is that when you guys go and work with your teams, you can talk about this. You can have a whole session on just, what do we do to reduce this particular slide here? What can we do to what can you do or what can be done to reduce the energy consumption in this particular element of a food system? So there's just so many ideas out there that we can have, because there are just so many places to change what we are doing. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'm going to talk about just a few of the new kinds of systems that are out there. And then again, please feel free to add things that you know about to add to my list here. So again, so our students can have a much wider view of what can be happening. So one of the first things I wanted to bring forward for you is some of the things that we're doing to replace traditional energy on farms. And one of the ones that is really powerful these days is the anaerobic biodigester. We have for decades and decades on farms with dairy farms and beef farms or any kind of processed meat. If they're doing sheep, if they're doing pigs, if they're doing whatever they're doing for meat, we've put our manure in lagoons, and that's been the way that we treated manure. And manure lagoons are a very, very powerful source of greenhouse gases, right? They generate nitrogen, they generate they generate NOx, they generate methane, they generate CO2. They're really pretty, and they stink. That's all the sulfur gases that are coming off of there. But they do sort of process the waste, sort of, but the liquid coming off there still is quite nasty. So one of the new potential solutions to that is the biodigester. And so I'm going to take us over to pop that in there and see if we can take a look at these. So this is from the Environmental Defense Fund. And I love the fact that they gave us all these cow butts here, because if you know anything about at least agricultural methane comes out the front end. But if you're talking about biodigesters, we are worried about what's coming out the back. So this is a really wonderful example from a dairy in Wisconsin that they have 2,000 cows, and using the biodigester on their farm, which is pictured right here. And I love this picture. If you look at it very carefully, you can see it's a big cylindrical metal building with a lid on it. And what they're doing in here is they're taking the manure and they're digesting it using bacteria under anaerobic condition to produce biogas. And then they're using the biogas to fuel not just their farm, but about 300 local homes using their biodigester. And I like that. The owner, he's one of the owners, he says, it's not always sunny or windy here, but we definitely always have manure. We like to call it cow power. So it's a great, really interesting opportunity. And you can see there's not very many of them, right? There's only about, according to this article from the Environmental Defense Fund, there's only about 300 of them across the country. So it's a very new technology, but those farmers who can afford to install it are reaping great benefits from it. So again, it takes what normally is anaerobic and aerobic digestion that takes place in a lagoon, transfers it into a facility. So you have to have the land for the facility. You've got to have the money to install this thing. They range in price from $500,000 to upwards of $3 million to install. So they are not cheap. But if you can support the installation of one, you can capture an awful lot of primarily methane and sell it as a way to pay for the installation. So I'm going to scroll down here. Hopefully I won't make anybody seasick by doing it. And they talk a little bit here about cow burps and feed additives. And that is definitely a way that we can address some of the methane produced on farms. There's an additive 3-NOP. I don't actually know what's in it, but it reduces methane from belching cows by about 30%. But one of the most promising additives out there is actually red or brown seaweed, which may cut belching methane by as much as 70%. So those are really very promising, but you have to give them out there to the cow every day. The real big thing here is right now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced a first of its kind $1 billion investment in pilot projects that reduce on farms that reduce or capture climate warming gases, and biodigesters would fall into that category. So we finally have some opportunities for some subsidies from the federal government for agriculture that will support this kind of new infrastructure on farms to reduce emissions and to actually generate their own power. So I think that again, biogas through methane through manure digestion is one of the really new things that is coming out that will become more and more popular, especially as there are opportunities for people to have some support to build those. So that's just that's one really, really new one. Another one is this one here. If any of you guys have been to West Texas, this is something that you've seen before, which is putting large industrial scale farming of various kinds and wind on the same lands. And I particularly like this slide because you can see the dipper in the front, right? So this is the non-renewable and the renewable and the fiber farm, the cotton farm, all in the same place. And this is a photo from West Texas. So if you go up around Lubbock, you're going to see a lot of this. In fact, I drive up that way about 5 times a year, and I could probably take this photo because I pass a big cotton producer that has exactly this. He's got wind turbines, and he's got dippers, and he's making a lot of money off that land that doesn't have to do with that cotton that's in the foreground. But of course, he or she is also raising cotton. So this combination of using your land for generating renewables at the same time that you're doing agriculture on it has really taken hold. And wind has been kind of the first element of that. But the next one is actually other kinds of crops and solar. And that's the process that we call agrovoltaics. This is a little diagram here from a site I'll take you to in a minute. This is from a South Korean project where they have the ground-mounted solar, and it's mounted at an angle. And the broccoli is what they're raising. The broccoli is actually planted underneath the solar panels, and so at the time of day when the solar panels are really getting their most strong solar feed from the sun, it's actually protecting the broccoli from the harshness of the sun. And so the broccoli is shaded at certain times of the day, helping it to retain moisture, helping it to be greener, just helping it to be a healthier plant. And we're seeing that this actually works in various parts of the world. People are trying this combined technology. So let me take you over here and we'll take a look at this one. This is from the World Economic Forum. So, I try not to get these sources for you. I try to get them from different places that are fairly reputable, as opposed to people who are just strongly advocated in one direction or another. But this one, and again, your students can listen to it if they want to. But this is just a couple of examples where, and with details as to how you can actually do this. So this project in South Korea, the panels are 2 to 3 meters off the ground, so 6 to 10 feet up. They're at an angle of 30 degrees, and you can see the diagram here, along with the temperature gauge of what kind of temperature is being maintained at the surface of the plant. There are other places they're using it. East Africa is using it again to raise vegetables in Kenya. We have a panel in another one in France. So again, you guys can check these out with your students and take a look and see what kind of production they're getting and how they're doing this. So again, this is the one in Kenya, and you can see it here where they're raising vegetables underneath the panels, and you can see that they've basically spaced them out so that they're not entirely blocking the sun from what look like to be cabbages, but they are both gaining energy and producing food. And this can be done at the local scale, right? So this farm could be using this solar energy just to run itself, or it can be big enough that it's actually sellable. So they're actually selling energy at the same time that they're raising food. So they have a dual source of income. And again, if there can be some subsidy to help local farmers do this, it can really raise the economic level of people who are in the farming business and help them stay in that business longer. Because as we all know, farming is not always a business that helps everybody make a living. And again, it's different in different parts of the world. So agrovoltaics, another really new idea out there. Farm electrification. We talked about tractors, and we talked about what we can do to right on the farm. And so, of course, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is electric tractors. And so, again, I'm going to take you to a website here about that, and we'll take a look at some of the things they are producing and some of the drawbacks too. So, first thing I want you to look at is this first photo. This is a photo of a compact electric tractor. This is in California, and I'm sure, what are they raising? Can you tell from the photo? I guess the answer is no. This is a vineyard. And vineyards in California are one of the first places that they've started using these. And for an operation like a vineyard, which needs small scale equipment, electric vehicles are ideal. They are small. They actually have solar panels on the top of them, as well as having battery power. They can run for 8 to 14 hours. They fit well in between the vines. They're quite useful. And what I wanted to show you here is some of the photos. So here's one here. Again, you can see the relative size of it compared to the people who are looking at it. Again, it's a compact tractor. Again, you can't really see them here, but you can see, they have lights on the top there. Again, some of them have solar collectors up there too. This is another picture of a smaller scale farm. This is a tiller. You can see he's sitting up here, and this is a battery powered tiller. The batteries are here in the wheels, so there's no big engine on this device at all. And it's being used to till the soil. So this is another, again, small electric vehicle that could be used. What you don't see here, here's another one. This is a little solar vehicle that's going along through his lettuce rows. And again, you can see that because it's electric, the power's here in the wheels. There's no big engine on it, and the small batteries work. So electrified vehicles work great for small scale applications. What they don't work well for is large tractors. And the real problem with large tractors is that when you put a lot of batteries in them in order to get the kind of duration of use in them, they get so heavy that they start to compact the soil worse than a standard diesel tractor. And that's a big no-no, right? Farmers do not want to be compacting their soil. It damages their soil structure. It reduces the productivity of their fields. So they don't want that. And also, in order to make them big enough to be able to go out in the field for 10 or 12 hours, they have to have so many batteries and so much weight. Again, the drawbacks there are bigger than the advantages of using electric. The flip side of that, and this kind of goes back to what Dennis was telling you about, is that a lot of farms are converting their tractors, their large equipment, to biodiesel. So using a biofuel. And in some cases, they're actually able to produce the biofuel right on the farm. So, for example, they're raising corn. They harvest the corn. Then they take the residue. They generate biofuel from that, and then they can reuse the biofuel right on the farm, and also maybe make more and sell it. So you can replace your petroleum-based fuels with biodiesel for large equipment that cannot be electrified. So there's a great way kind of to handle the equipment that's on a farm in terms of either electrifying it or transitioning to a more renewable fuel for them. So again, lots of opportunities out there. People are doing this, but again, it's a slow break into the industry, and it requires money to make these investments. And farmers, may or may not have that ability to make change. And it moves at the rate that the farmers want to do it, and then have the ability to do it. Production and processing. We talked about all of the different things that take up energy in this area, but when we talk about that, because we're mostly talking about infrastructure, we're talking about transportation, we're talking about buildings, we're talking about equipment in buildings, we have the same kinds of opportunities to use renewable resources there that we do in any other kind of a facility. So it doesn't have to be a food production facility. It could be an Amazon warehouse, or it could be a petrochemical plant. They still have the opportunity to go to renewable energy for solar for some of their actual facility needs. They can go to biodiesel equipment. They can change again, they can change the fuel source that is fueling the facility at all different levels and providing the electricity at all different levels to make things happen. And if you're talking about transportation, again, we can talk about renewable fueled vehicles, biodiesel fuels in trains, for example. Electric locomotives are what everybody uses now, right? Everybody uses an electric locomotive. Diesel locomotives are really going out very, very fast. If they're not gone, they are very rare these days. So we use electric locomotives. Trucks can be converted to biodiesel. And then ideally, local delivery vehicles, especially in urban areas, can be electrified. Kind of like what Amazon is doing, where, suddenly you see that in the urban areas, they're using electric vans so that they aren't generating emissions within the urban airshed, if you like. One of the things that I really like to think about here is marketing. And while marketing itself uses energy, the actual market pitches for products and brands is really getting involved with net zero and emissions reductions. And so I wanted to take you out here and show you this article about some of the really big companies that are putting net zero emissions in their pledges about how they produce food. So this article comes from, this is a blog, I think, called Just Food. And it goes over some of the emissions pledges that some of the big food companies have been making. So there's a list down here. I'll scroll down. So Nestle, right? Nestle has committed to being greenhouse gas emissions free by 2050. Some people would say that's not soon enough. A lot of people would say that. But this is one of the world's biggest food manufacturers, food producers, that has committed to go net zero. So Nestle is one. Pepsi. Pepsi has said they are going to go net zero by 2040 and try to reduce emissions across the board in their production, distribution, marketing. So, and again, Pepsi owns people like Quaker cereal and Lay's snacks. So it's not just drinks. They own lots of things. Mondelez International is an international distributor of snacks, particularly Cadbury chocolate. They also make Oreos, in case you don't think you've ever eaten anything from Mondelez International. Oh, yeah, you have. Well, if you like Oreos anyway. So they are another great big producer that has decided that they will go net zero by 2050. Grupo Bimbo, another very large bakery, international bakery, has said they're going to try to go net zero also by 2050. Mars, huge sweets company, M&Ms, Mars bars, all sorts of other kinds of confections. They've said they're trying to go 50% cut by 2030. And they haven't basically said that they're going to, so they said they're going to try to do net zero by 2050 as well. And they backed off, right? They actually said they were going to do it by 2040. So they've decided that they can't do it that fast, which is a problem. Danone is an international maker of dairy products, Activia, Actimel. They do a lot of yogurt. It's not Danone, it's Danone. It's a different company, but again, net carbon zero by 2050. So again, you can take a look at this and a whole list of different big companies that have gone along and said, we're going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to net zero. Those of us who work in this area know that that's really not fast enough, and that people should have been able to try to do this by 2030. We're already seeing the impacts of the fact that nobody did. So this is a problem, but we are not running those companies, are we? So the last one I wanted to share with you, and I love to talk about this one, but how do we reduce emissions by changing the way we prepare and consume food? And I like this one the best because I'm always interested in those topics that have to do with us and what we can do to make change. And so, of course, I think all of us realize that food waste is an enormous generator of emissions, because every bit of food that gets wasted means that somebody has to make some more. And so reducing food waste is massive. People have talked about, well, let me go back for a second here. we always think around here, food waste. We think about what we eat every week and how much of it goes in the trash because the apples spoiled. Or like in my fridge right now, the pears are looking pretty bad. Or I forgot that there was a tomato back there and now it's green, that kind of thing. But there are parts of the world where food waste is kind of a tradition. And so I wanted to share this website with you because it's not something most of us who are at least not practicing Muslims would think about. This is, again, a food blog called Love Food and Hate Waste. And the title of this particular blog is Reducing Food Waste During Ramadan, because food is precious. Does anybody here practice observing Ramadan?
I do.
So can you talk a little bit about iftar and the traditions around food and the breaking of the fast?
So it is religious more than it's a traditional part of it. So Ramadan is a holy month where Muslims practice fasting so they can appreciate the food they have and feel with the people that don't have food. And when we break fast, you usually, it's part of the religion is to not overeat and then share the food, make food just enough and share the food with with people that are less fortunate and don't have food. So there will be no food wasted during that whole holy month.
So I spent some time in Oman a couple of years ago, and they had a big campaign there going on digital media, actually. And the star of the campaign was Granny, who kept telling everybody, not to overcook during Ramadan, because apparently there overcooking and having an overabundance was part of their celebration.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries, Ramadan is becoming more like a cultural event more than a religious event, and people are forgetting the religious side of it, and they make big feasts, and it's becoming more like if you go on social media in Ramadan, having the big feast is now like a social expectation, and showing off and having parties of hundreds, and the more food in the table is the more socially accepted you're gonna be. So yes, during the religious part of it is all about not wasting food, sharing food, but it's kind of turning into to be like a social showing of wasting food during that month.
Yeah. So there's these big campaigns now in different parts of the Middle East to help people stop doing that, because this is a big issue for the country itself, for its food security, for the price of food, and just everybody recognizes that this is wasting food is a huge contributor toward to energy use too. I mean, there's so many reasons not to waste food. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. I'm so glad you're here because again, there are just some really interesting informal data here. But they said, when they interviewed some people, they said that they thought other people prepared too much food, but only 71% of them reported that, well, we don't use that much. We just use less. More than half said they have leftovers. Many of them said, of course, they keep them and eat them the next day. But then others said, well, yeah, we keep them. We mean to use them the next day, but we end up throwing them away, which all of us do with our food, right? I mean, it's not just this during Ramadan. It's all of us. We buy food, we cook food, we think we're going to have leftovers the next day. We get a pizza instead, and we don't eat our leftovers. So I think, the push to reduce food waste and to consume our leftovers and to not make more than you can eat is multicultural. It's international, and it's a really important way to reduce the energy use that's in our food system. Lots of people are talking out there about whether or not we need to eat less meat. Is meat the problem, and do we have to eat less meat? The UN talks about that and I really like this because the UN isn't about to go out and say, oh, yes, stop eating meat, because a lot of their members grow and sell a lot of meat. So what they basically say is, and they talk about the different, what we just talked about, the different contributions of greenhouse gases from agriculture and land use, less of it, as we said here, less of it from refrigeration, transportation, and managing food waste. But meat production is still a big generator of greenhouse gases. Shrimp farms and plant-based foods generally have less of that. Some great diagrams here that you can use with your kids to show them how much greenhouse gas emissions comes from different types of food products. So we have these are per kilogram of food here. This one per 100 grams of protein. So for protein sources and per calorie. So some really nice diagrams here that show you how much greenhouse gas is emitted in terms of the protein source, in terms of the food itself, in terms of the amount of protein you get from it, and per the food value of it, how much nutrition you're getting in calories in terms of the food you're eating. And then last down here's what can you do? Of course, there's always something, and a more plant-based diet is better for us as well as better for the planet. But again, some places, meat and dairy are what they can raise. And so if the country can, and I like this, in most high income countries, shifting to more plant-based foods promotes better health as well as lowering environmental impact. And so that's kind of the message for us. It's like, don't think everybody in the world has to do this, but if we could do it, it would help a lot. Try sustainable recipes. I like that. Cut your food waste. So try not to do that. And then shop with a reusable bag. And I know one of you guys was talking earlier that this idea that we multiply the plastics that we use by buying food that's in plastic and put it in plastic to take it home. Big difference. So you can talk to your students about the foods of the future and whether they're going to be willing to eat them. Are they going to be willing to eat insects, crickets, grasshoppers, cicadas, cricket flour, roasted insects? I don't know if I'll get there or not, but cricket flour I would probably try because I can't tell that it's a cricket. Seaweed and algae, again, parts of the world use this now, but they're going to be bigger players in our diet. Lab-grown meat is a thing that's currently happening. So lots of things going on around new protein sources and new food sources in the future that reduce our energy impact and replace some of our really high energy consuming practices in terms of what we consume. And then my very last slide, which I'm not going to show you right now, is a wonderful TED Talk by Dan Barber, who is a chef. He's a James Beard award-winning chef. And he has this fantastic TED Talk called How I Fell in Love with a Fish. And it's about this incredible regenerative fish farm that is currently working away in Portugal. So I'll share that with you. With that, I'm going to stop. And I'd love to hear any of your comments or suggestions or ideas about how this is going to work for your students in some areas that you think they might be interested in and the ones that you're really interested in.
Thank you, Kathy. I love that this was interactive. Very nice.
Well, I'm trying.
Yes, I am going to second that endorsement for that particular TED Talk. I think it's wonderful. It's one of my favorite ones.
Yep, he's hilarious. It's hilarious. And
yes.
It's really, really a great point. And Bev says, let's see. Fantastic presentations to turn things we may know into new information. Oh, thank you. That's kind of how I did it when I was putting it together. I'm like, because I talk a lot about my classes. I talk about green agriculture and better agricultural practices, but looking at the food as a system and a process that is that involves people and social systems, and all of that is completely new way of thinking it for me. And so I'm like, oh, I'm taking this to my class too. So I'll be using this stuff too.
Thank you for taking the time out to come and speak to us. We do appreciate it.
Thanks again, guys. Thank you for your time and your patience and your input on this presentation. I really appreciate it.